How's it going, guys? Andrew here with Justified EDC. Long time no see. I'm back with another video. Thank you guys for being patient. Been doing a lot of testing and getting stuff in and out, and it's been busy in life in general, but I'm really excited about this knife right here. So I wanted to get a video out for you guys. This is the Toor Knives Merchant 2.0. If you guys are familiar with Toor knives, or if you're not, they are mostly known for their fixed blades, doing like high-end, like semi-custom kind of high-end production fixed blades. And the Merchant and a couple other folders were kind of their first venture into the folding knife world. This is the 2.0, as I mentioned. There was a 1.0 before this. I think it was just called the Merchant. And that had a lot of issues from what I've seen, some growing pains. You guys know how I feel about knives being released with issues. I don't really think there's a good excuse for it, but at the same time, venturing from the fixed blade world to the folding knife world, that is a much different ball game, and it seems like most of the issues with the 1.0 were ironed out with this second version. So very happy to hear about that. It also seems like Toor has been very open to hearing feedback from the other reviews I watched. Again, because this is a knife that I've heard some mixed stuff about, especially with the 1.0, I watched a lot of other people's reviews to get information for this because, again, I have a sample size of one. And with QC issues, it's very possible for people to get a really good one and give a good review, and then for a lot of other people to have issues. So like I said, I watched a bunch of other reviews, and the majority of people, the vast majority, are pretty much saying this second version fixed a lot of those problems with the 1.0. So I'm going to quick give you some rundown of the specs and that kind of thing, give you some size comparisons, and then we'll talk about the use that I put behind this and my thoughts on the design and the construction and everything. So real quick, we're just going to give you the size here. So this is coming in at overall just under 8 inches. You have a blade length of overall blade length of right about 3.5 inches. You have just over 3 inches of sharpened edge. And then the handle length here, your overall length on the handle is about 4.5 inches. Your grip area is right at 4 inches, which is perfect for my hands. Again, I wear a medium-sized glove, so this gives me plenty of grip area. This works in all of your standard grips. Your blade thickness, I forgot to measure this right before the review, but it looks like we're coming at about 1/8 inch blade stock. You have a high flat grind here, not a full flat grind. As you can see, there's some flat up here with the swedge, but a high flat grind that comes down to what I would kind of like a mid flat grind in terms of thickness. It's not the sliciest knife in the world, but it's also not so thick that you can't get actual cutting tasks done with it, which is, again, if you guys know my kind of thoughts on my EDC fixed blades, like, let me grab one here. This is the Varga from Offensive Industries, even with a kind of a mid-flat grind. As long as you're getting that edge angle right and a nice sharp edge bevel, you can have a little bit thicker of a grind and still get good cutting performance out of it. Sorry, getting my tool chest all squared away. But so yeah, this has kind of that like in between where you can push it a little bit harder, but you can still use it for your kind of EDC tasks. The materials on here are titanium. You have a titanium frame lock, and then you have S35VN for the blade steel. Thumb stud deploying. You have phosphor bronze washers in the pivot. And this is a good time to mention that all of this is made in the USA, including the hardware, all made in-house, which is very cool. We love to see that. Deep carry pocket clip, which is one of the things that was a complaint on the 1.0, is they had again, a pocket clip like this, but it was mounted down like this far. You had like a full inch of knife sticking out. It wasn't deep carry. It wasn't the greatest pocket clip in the world. So this is a big improvement over that. One of the other improvements that they made over the 1.0 is this is a lot thinner. The first version was a very thick, heavy knife that I think just kind of missed the mark for a lot of people. I think a lot of companies think you have to go like super big and overbuilt for a knife to be quote unquote harder use or able to be used harder. But this is, I think, a really good balance in between. You have, this is the version that has the black coated blade, and I think the finish, they were calling this like a bronze finish. But again, I got this on the secondary market. I should have put a disclaimer here at the beginning. This was not sent to me for review. I traded for this on the secondary market. This is my knife. The the original owner had already put some use on it, so I think the coating was starting to wear a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit more on that clip, that kind of bronzed color. But to me, this is very similar to the finish on like a Sebenza handle. It might be a little bit darker, but I think that kind of gray handle with a little bit of bronze with the black blade is really cool. I don't usually prefer coated blades, but when I have a coated blade, I like when they wear like this. You can see as it's being used, that coating is starting to wear really nicely. I also really like when this kind of finish gets all scratched up with use, this kind of snail trails. I think that looks really, really awesome as it's starting to be used. So I'm going to pop up some size comparisons here for you. Do some of my old standbys. Here is the Spyderco Gale Bradley 2. As you can see, that is a larger knife, but I would consider this a mid to full size knife. Let's see what else we got here. This is the Emerson EX100, very similar in overall length. Get some of these out of here. Here is a Emerson CQC10. Let's see, what else do we got here? The Spyderco Para 3. You can see it is a longer knife. You have similar handle length, but more sharpened edge on that. And then let's get some other comparisons in here. This is a Gonzo, but same overall size and profile as a Spyderco Delica. That's usually a good size comparison for a lot of people. And then one more kind of like old standby, so if I can find it here. This is, and I'm sorry for the camera shaking, I'm trying to figure out a solution for that. I had the mount mounted to the actual desk, so it likes to shake around on me, especially when I open my tool chest here. But here's the Buck 110. Again, not exactly similar knives, but just trying to show you guys stuff that a lot of people are familiar with so you can get a good idea of the size range on this. So let me go ahead and put all this stuff away, and then we will get into some of the design and stuff like that. So let's address the elephant in the room. This is very similar in overall size, form, and function and construction to a Chris Reeve Sebenza. Especially, I would say a really good comparison to this would be a large Sebenza 21. Because the old 21 did not have a ceramic detent / lock face. This is just a titanium lock face with a steel detent ball in there. And so the difference between the Sebenza 21 and the 31, the 21 was just a titanium against the steel tang of your blade, whereas the newer ones, the 31 and I don't even know what iterations they're onto now. I don't keep up with Chris Reeve stuff, but they have a ceramic detent that also acts as a lock face. I did not prefer that. I've had a couple Sebenza 21s. I had a 25, which was kind of like the precursor to the Incosi that had the ceramic interface, and I definitely prefer just the straight titanium. One thing that can happen with that is because titanium is a softer material, is that lock face will wear over time and you can develop some blade play or lock rock. The other thing that can happen is early on, the titanium can develop some lock stick. Now again, this was a user when I got it, so I don't know if it had a break-in period or not, but this has no lock stick at all. See if you can hear it when I close it. There's no lock stick at all. No issues with that. Side to side, absolute bank fault. There's no blade play at all. And then up and down, there is not really any play. There is the slightest hint of lock rock up and down. Not enough that I think it's going to be an issue. And again, I can't even really see it flexing or hitting. You can barely even hear it. I'm going to shut up here so you can see if you can hear it on camera. I don't know if you can hear that, but you can't even really see it moving. It's not enough that it bothers me. And to be honest, the newer Sebenzas with that ceramic detent or that ceramic lock interface are having some vertical lock rock issues as well. So I can't really knock that too hard. I know lock rock really torques off some people. I don't, unless it's like really bad where you're visibly watching the blade move. I don't really see it as an issue, and like I said, the lockup is really solid. I have no issues. I have no worries about this failing on me, especially in the grips that you're using it. You're kind of applying pressure to that lock bar anyway, so the way this would have to move to disengage I don't really see it being an issue. I've done spine wax and stuff like that. It doesn't move at all. I'm not really worried about that lock failing. So yeah, if you like having a steel insert or a ceramic insert, that might be a turnoff for you. It also does not have an over travel stop similar to the Sebenza. So again, if you're one of those people that is known for muscling that lock and can kind of overbend it, that might be something to consider. I have a friend on Instagram who's broken multiple Sebenzas from bending that lock bar too far, but I've never had that happen to me with a Sebenza or this knife. So that's just something to be aware of. Your construction all the way around is nice big torque sizes. I believe this is a T8, and I think these are T10s. I'd have to double check that. Again, this isn't really a full review because I've only had this knife for like 2 weeks now, but I have been carrying it pretty much every day since I got it. I will probably do a use update down the road, not like a full review update or anything like that, but I'll probably do a use update down the road, especially if any kind of issues persist or develop over time. But yeah, I don't really see anything right now that's alarming to me. One thing I did hear some people complain about is with the pocket clip. We've kind of gotten used to, and I'll pull out a knife here that is a good example of this. We've kind of gotten used to the standard of screws being countersunk and the clip being inset into the liner, and the screws being countersunk so that they're flush and there's nothing in the way of your pocket when it travels underneath the clip. That is a nice thing. Again, this is a Civivi. I don't even remember the model. No, this is one of the only Civivi knives I really like. It's a Ray Laconico, but it's kind of become standard to have that kind of clip mounting, just because some people don't like when the pocket clip gets or the screw for the pocket clip gets hung up on your pocket. It would be nice if that screw was countersunk, but I kind of understand the way they have this done. To have it be a single hole, they have to have that little lip in here that goes down into the scale, and then they can use a single screw just to hold that pocket clip on. I've had no problems with it moving around or anything like that. So it doesn't bother me. I can get in and out of the pocket just fine, but if you have like really thick hem on your pocket, that might be an issue. I don't really know, but it hasn't bothered me all that much. I know some people don't like that though. It would be cool to see it change though. One other person, when I first got this knife, they did say that they had one of these and the pocket clip was very flimsy and they ended up like bending it out of place within a couple hours of carrying it. I have not had that experience yet. There is a decent amount of spring tension on here. It's not too hard, not too soft. It keeps it in your pocket really well. So I haven't had that issue yet. But just be aware, again, I'm trying to give you guys information from other people just because, again, I have a sample size of one. So one person did say that this pocket clip really bent out of shape on them, but again, I'm sure that's something you could contact the manufacturer and they would get you a new one. In terms of detent, the action is very similar to a Sebenza, and it's that very smooth hydraulic open and close. I wouldn't say it's quite as smooth as a Sebenza, but again, action isn't everything. We really just need it to function, and it is plenty easy to slow roll open. But the detent is also dialed in enough that you can thumb flick it, and you can even reverse flick it. So I don't really see an issue with the detent. I know some people think it's a little bit soft, but there, as you can see, it clicks down in just fine. And like I said, once you get used to the thumb stud position and everything like that, and how to position your hand properly, I have no problem flicking this open and close. It is not drop shutty by any means. Not that I care about that at all, but I know some people do. But yeah, very similar overall in the action and form and function of the Sebenza. I actually like the handle shape a lot better with it being thinner up here, so it's a lot easier to do kind of your pinch grips. I find a lot of times, like especially like breaking down cardboard, this is kind of the grip that I'm using, where I'm using it like this and cutting. So that kind of thinner section there gives me better control. And then it flares out here in the back, so even when you do use your kind of full grips, you still have a lot to hold on to, especially in your reverse grips. You can do reverse grip edge in because of the way this cutout is placed here. So that's pretty solid. Again, not really the point of the knife, but you guys know I like to check all the different grips. I have been using the knife in this grip quite a bit, just cutting straps like on pallets. And I also find with some thicker cardboard, it's easier to kind of hold the cardboard and cut back towards yourself. So that's been very comfortable. No real complaints there. But yeah, the use has been really good on this. I believe the edge on this is aftermarket. When I look at some of the product photos, the edge bevel is a little bit thinner on the Toor product photos, so just be aware. I think this is a secondary, like an aftermarket edge that the previous owner put on it, but it's been cutting very, very nicely. Haven't really had a whole lot of chipping issues. Just running my finger along here, I don't really feel anything. There's some maybe like very micro chips. Now the very tip of the knife here, again, this is not a factory edge, but I did chip the tip just a hair. I don't know if you can really see that. Not enough to the point where it's like snapped the entire tip off, but I was dumb at work. I was cutting something on top of a steel plate and I dropped the knife and it hit tip first. And it just chipped the tip ever so slightly. Now that shouldn't be an issue. It'll probably sharpen out in the next sharpening. But again, that's just something to be aware of. With your more higher end stainless steels like S35VN, you do have to worry. You do have to not worry, but be aware that there is the potential to chip your edge a little bit easier. I usually prefer a little bit softer of steels for my EDC knives. I've really been liking like Nitro V, ADC RV2, AEBL, that kind of stuff, just because it is a little bit softer, so you don't have as much edge retention, but it's much easier to maintain your knives. You can just strap them up daily or weekly and keep them like pretty sharp, and the edge still lasts for a decently long time. But then you don't have to worry about chipping the edge. So you hit like a staple in a package or you drop it or something like that. Like, for example, this knife that I've been carrying here, this is a fixed blade, obviously. This is the Crossroad Customs Wesker in Nitro V. I dropped this tip down from about 4 or 5 feet up, tip down onto a ceramic tile floor, and there's no tip deformation at all. So that's just something to be aware of. With when you get the more edge retention you're getting out of a steel, usually it becomes a little bit more brittle. So now, in terms of the proper HRC for S35VN, from what I've read, usually most people keep it between like 59 and 61 HRC. That seems to be the sweet spot. You can heat treat S35VN all the way up to 64 HRC, but it's kind of a point of diminishing returns after 61. And Toor does list this as being heat treated between 59 and 61. So I think they have the proper heat treat on it. It's just the nature of the steel leads it to be a little bit more brittle than some of your softer steels. This is not going to be nearly as chippy as something like M390, something like that, but just something to be aware of. I prefer this a little bit softer of a steel, but I know I'm in the minority in that, so I'm not going to complain too hard. The ergonomics, again, getting back to that, the jimping on here, I heard some people complain that this is too sharp, which I would say get over it. Don't be such a man-child. These really aren't that sharp. They're very effective jimping. Really locks your thumb in there if you're going to be piercing into something. You don't want to slip forward on the blade. I think it's great. And another improvement over something like the Sebenza is the thumb studs. You have these nice, big, wide thumb studs, whereas the Sebenza are a little bit more pointed. Now, some people complain about Sebenza thumb studs. They tear up my thumb. They're so pointy. They hurt to use. No, they don't. Again, grow up. You're an adult. It's really not that bad. But I will say these, I think, are an improvement over something like that. I definitely prefer these. They're more comfortable to use. And being wider, you just have a little bit more control. So there is that. Now, the last thing to kind of, and I know I'm doing a lot of Sebenza comparisons because look at the knife. I think that's what a lot of people are thinking when they're looking at this. The new Sebenzas are coming in usually between the $500-$600 mark now. On the newest iteration, and just with price increases across the industry, yeah, you're looking to pay between $500-$600 for a new Sebenza. Even the old 21s, people are kind of treating as collector pieces now, so it's kind of hard to get those. I remember when you could get Sebenzas for like a used 21s for like the $300 mark. This knife is coming in retail at $395, and I think that is awesome for a USA-made knife. That's completely made in-house, even all the hardware. Titanium S35VN, which is what you're getting on, I think they've moved to S45 on the new Sebenzas, but a very comparable form factor, materials, construction to the Sebenza, and you're getting it for almost half the cost of a new Sebenza. I think this beats that out all day, every day in terms of like bang for your buck. I would buy one of these. I'd buy 2 of these instead of buying a Sebenza, being just completely honest. I also just like the blade shape and handle shape a little bit more than the Sebenza. I think the Sebenza's handle overall might be a little bit more comfortable because it is a little bit more neutral. It might be a little bit wider. But again, I do like how it thins up here for those kinds of pinch grips. And then the actual blade shape, I do like that more acute, like stabby kind of blade. I think it's a little bit more useful than the drop point Sebenza shape. It's a little bit wider. Because here you get a lot of flat where you get a lot of that cutting performance similar to like a Warncliffe or sheep's foot, but then you have a little bit of belly here up at the end. So if you need to cut on a table or anything like that, you can still do that. The blade isn't too long. You can still kind of choke up here with that choil and get out to that tip and kind of do draw cuts on your table if you need to do something like that. Yeah, this just speaks to me a little bit more than the Sebenza, especially for the price point. Getting these $295 retail. You can get these with like a black PVD blade and a black PVD handle, excuse me, and a stonewash blade, or you can get this kind of bronze gray color with the black coated blade. If you are someone that likes your knives to stay pretty, even with use and not show wear as much, this is definitely not the knife for you. Both the blade finish and the handle finish are going to scratch up and show wear. But again, that is a plus in my book. I really enjoy that. So yeah, just overall final thoughts, guys. I think this is a great buy. I will update you guys with use if this develops any kind of problems. If that, like, for example, if that lock rock gets any worse, that might be something I'll want to address with the manufacturer. But the last thing, and I forgot this here, the last thing that I saw in another person's review is this is a free spinning pivot, which in 2023, I don't really understand why companies are still doing free spinning pivots. I'd much rather see one side be captive. Now, that being said, I've never had this pivot back out on me or loosen up. I've opened this a ton, put a bunch of use on it since I've gotten it, and that has not loosened up at all. I have not needed to adjust the pivot. But they did say that not only is it free spinning, but they found what they think might be even purple Loctite in there. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation where with a free spinning pivot, you either leave it free spinning and it backs out and then it's kind of annoying to have to adjust, or you put Loctite in there. But now if you want to take the knife apart, which I haven't done yet for this exact reason, if you want to take that knife apart, it might really be a bitch to get out with that kind of Loctite in there. But again, with this kind of design and with phosphor bronze in the pivot, you probably won't really need to take this apart that much unless you really, really get it dirty. So I don't know. That's one thing to consider. So I think there's a few minor tweaks that could be made to make this knife even better. I might suggest an over travel stop. I don't really think it needs the lock bar insert necessarily, but an over travel stop might be nice just so you don't accidentally flex this lock bar out of the way. Maybe a flush screw under the pivot or under the pocket clip, excuse me. That might be nice. And then, yeah, maybe a captured pivot, like a D-shaped pivot on one side might be nicer so that you can kind of tune it how you want. It's easier to take apart. And then you can just throw some blue Loctite in there and be on your way. Still easy to get apart, but holding together just fine. So those are kind of my final thoughts on the knife, guys. I think it's a great knife, just a great user. A higher end user, made in the USA, all made in-house, performing very well and at a really good price, right under $300. There's a lot of Chinese knives at $300 that I think this can outperform. And one of the problems with getting a USA made knife is often you run into the issue like a Chris Reeve where you're paying $600 for materials that at this point are kind of seem like a little bit outdated, but I think this does a stellar job of kind of meeting that in the middle and being just a fantastic user. So if you guys have any other questions, if you have any experience with this knife that doesn't match mine, please leave it down in the comments. I will not be offended if you comment and are like, I had a bunch of issues with mine. I really would love to hear that so that I can put that out there for guys to say like, maybe avoid this if it's having issues or not. But so far mine has been super solid. But yeah, if you have any questions about this, any comments on your own knives, please leave them down in the comment section. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.